So we're going to pull in Satan from New Jersey, which makes sense because that feels aligned for New Jersey. Hello, Satan.
Hi, Satan.
Are you there?
Hello. Yes.
Hi.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
We can.
Amazing. Good to speak to you, ladies. I hope you're doing well. I have a question. I actually called the line maybe a week or two ago, spoke to Matt before, and it was a different context, given different shows bring different vibe to the conversation. So it was a Sunday show back then. And this particular show may be more relevant to my question altogether. So I was a little while ago surrounded by family and friends, and we had conversations about relationships. And I was not the one asking, but someone asked a female person about her preferences in dating and things like that. And number one was not 6 feet tall or anything like that or money. No, it was a God-fearing man. Like that was the thing for that particular person. And for me, it became just kind of a dissonance immediately inside because it entails so many negative things in my understanding. And in this society, like here in the United States, it is definitely a patriarchal society. Other countries can be much worse. Somewhere in the Middle East, it would be just even more pronounced. But let's say here in America, just wanted to hear your thoughts about hearing someone expressing like that's my preference. Of course, we cannot affect anyone's desires, and we can tell them what to want or not to want. But at the same time, they might not understand, like, oh, that's actually problematic. So what are your thoughts about that?
My first question would be like, is there a specific part that you think is problematic, or like just the entire concept of like a God-fearing man?
Well, let's put it this way. If you follow the Bible, for example, or you follow, well, especially the Bible, really, Quran can be a little vague in some places, I know, but still it's a very patriarchal society. But let's say Christianity. In this case, the person is Christian too. So by saying God-fearing man, they imply the one that follows the Bible and plural praise to the Jesus Christ and the Trinity and whatever. So if they're really following the Bible, it's not good. I mean, so many things in the Bible. First of all, they believe in something that is not confirmed to be true, and they believe without evidence that thing is problematic. And then they guiding the family because the man is the head of the household in the Christian family, like that nuclear family type. And it also entails bad example for the kids, for example. They'll grow thinking that, yeah, the father is everything and the mother is kind of secondary. And then they go to church, and church tells you, like, you're a woman, just keep your tongue, keep your mouth shut. Like, the man has to do things. Like, all kind of things like that just comes to my mind, personally. But what are your thoughts?
I definitely have seen it go like a couple different ways because I think sometimes it comes down to like interpretation of the Bible. But like you said, if they're taking like how there's a lot of evangelicals in the United States and they take the Bible very literally, that can obviously be really problematic because yeah, it leads to like patriarchal things and oppressing women and a lot of like homophobia and a bunch of other things. And I've seen it go one or two ways. I've heard some people say that it genuinely makes them a more like patient, loving person because they feel like they're doing it for some kind of, you know, uh, big reason that they think is morally good. And then I've seen it I feel like I more often see it the opposite way, like in American culture where yeah, it leads to not great things and it leads them treating people kind of not as equals. And I've also seen weird things like men use it as a weird thing of like, let's say he cheats. And there's like women who say like I have to stay beside him or stay beside him because that's like the Christian or womanly thing to do. I see it used in weird ways like that, where it's kind of a get out of jail free card as long as he's trying to be a godly man or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I do understand why you think it's problematic, because obviously a lot of the things within Christianity are going to be harmful towards women, like automatically, because of what is in the Bible in general. So I agree with you.
I agree
Right.
generally, but I also understand why, if you are a person who believes in God, you would want some, like the same way that I don't think I could ever date someone who was a theist. Like we would just have so much not aligned. So it's kind of like I have less of it feels like that makes sense because of the situation that they're in. Like they believe, so they want someone who also believes. And I don't know. I don't really have an interest in like deconverting people who don't have an interest in it, or like start that conversation with me, because, you know, I feel like it's sort of an invasion of their freedom of choice. Like if they want to believe that crap, that's not my problem. They can do it. And so the same thing for people who are, if they themselves are religious, I guess it makes sense to me that they would want someone who's also religious. And you guys are both absolutely right. And I would ask them like what values, like if you really wanted to like poke and prod at it, you could ask them like, oh, like what's important to you about religion that you need a God-fearing woman? Also, isn't it so interesting to describe your faith in fear? To be God-fearing is like this positive way to describe your faith, is so like that alone. Like I'm like, I'm feeling like if we had an iota of critical thought in that moment, we would realize how weird that is.
Yeah, I was also going to say something about that, because pretending like being afraid of like not pretending, I guess they genuinely believe it, but saying that fearing apparently this like God who is all loving and all merciful and stuff is such a good thing to be is, yeah, it's bizarre for sure.
Right. Yeah, and in that particular situation that I described when it happened, I did not engage and I did not ask any questions, like no strict epistemology or like, why do you believe, and like justify all that. I just kind of stayed away because, again, it's something so private. And the question was asked, like, what is your preference? And the person did answer, like, yes, that's the preference. But I didn't want to press and kind of going into all that in front of a group of people. Maybe it's a discussion better had one-on-one almost. Like, oh, I heard that's what you said. I'm just curious, maybe why your preferences are. But it's just such a delicate thing, but yet so hurtful thing. Like to see people go through that, and it just perpetuates that circle of all that patriarchal just society and following biblical canons and biblical rules without no particular evidence. It's just kind of a tradition. You follow it and you follow it, and you don't ask questions, and it hurts people down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think it's one of those things where you're just kind of, especially if you grow up in like a Christian household, you're kind of just told what to look for. And that kind of phrase, like, look for a God-fearing man or whatever, is just kind of said. And I don't think, like, I know when I was a Christian, I didn't really think about that much, like what exactly that meant or why exactly I wanted that. And so, yeah, I think some of it is just you grow up being told what to look for and what you should want, and that ends up being what a lot of people, go with. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and you're right about that. Actually, knowing that particular person, my fear is that, yes, they were kind of following the trend, and they were advised, like, that's what you have to go for. Always make sure that's the situation, like the man is following the Bible or goes to church or whatever it is, and they're not asking the independent questions, the important questions on their own. Why does it have to be like that? What if I meet just a guy is somewhere in the bar, wonderful human being, will be a wonderful father to the kids, or just honest and say faithful man, just not cheating guy. Why can't you be with someone like that? Why does it have to be a religious view that really feels that?
Yeah.
Ricky,
You could ask that. I think that might be like a way to ask, to just get more, like if you're just curious, you could ask like, oh, what about someone being God-fearing makes it, like, what do you look, when you say that, what are you looking for? Is it just like you want to be able to like go to church on Sundays, or is it like characteristics of their behavior? Like what are you looking for when you say that? Because just being God-fearing doesn't really tell the whole story. So I don't know, maybe you would get like some interesting feedback from them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think
good to get to your thoughts. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think again, going back to like growing up Christian, the main thing they emphasize is dating someone who also believes in God, like specifically the Christian God. So I think a lot of it is like if somebody from a Christian community or family were to even, end up in a relationship with somebody who wasn't Christian, that would be really frowned upon. I know that's like how I grew up, and most of the people don't want to deal with, let's say it's not even that important to them. Most people won't want to deal with that like weird backlash or being isolated from the rest of the family, because a lot of Christians think that's a huge deal, that you can't be unequally yoked or whatever you want to call it.
Yoked.
I know that in a lot of churches and believer circles, if you marry or at least date or even marry an atheist, it's like you married dating a devil himself. Almost.
Yeah.
They're taking it out of context entirely, because atheism is not for devil, not rooting for devil or God or anything like that. It's just the absence of belief in deities. But yet it's conceived as if it's like the devil itself, like that the fallen angel, the one that rejects God, doesn't want to do that, and instead of that, the one with the fear is better. So,
yeah, it's like any other abusive relationship where they're going to demonize people who are questioning, and they're going to demonize people who are not of the faith. It's like they're the fallen angels and whatever. It's just like when you look at it from the perspective of it being kind of an abusive relationship, it starts to become very clear that that's kind of what it is for some people, not for everybody. I mean, I think there may be people who are like casual Catholics or whatever. Like I'm thinking about like some family members of mine where like it's comforting to them some days, and other days they're like not fully subscribed, and I don't think that they have critical thoughts about it at all, and they just go to church on holidays. And I guess if that makes them feel good, fine. But a lot of it feels like an abusive relationship to me.
Yeah, and a lot of them take it even further where like there's a lot who don't even want you dating outside of your like type of Christianity. Like I know for me growing up, it was like I don't think dating even a Catholic would be a good thing in their eyes, which sounds crazy, like probably for people who like aren't even part of Christianity at all. But yeah, they even like sometimes take it that far where it's like they have to be a specific denomination or believe a specific type of theology when it comes to that.
yeah, it opens such a big can of worms right there. It all has to do with the standard questions, like which God exactly? Which God are we fearing? Why is that God better than any other God? I mean, how did you decide that? And you have to fear that entity too. I mean, you follow it so blindly that you're like scared to do anything wrong or right even. You're like in constant freeze mode.
Yeah.
So that's what it struck inside me when I hear someone say, "Yeah, I must have in my life a guy who is just so fearful of that entity," and it's like, "Oh no, don't do that. Oh, don't do that. You can do so much better." But at the same time,
I
it's like not your
know.
business, and it's hard to approach, and you don't want to hurt someone.
It's hard to find a balance
Yeah.
with that, especially when you care about the person. Like, I have a family member who is like, it's my grandmother, who's like at the end of her, at the end of her time on this earth, as it happens when you're old. And she said at some point, like while she was in the hospital, she was like, I pray and I pray and look where it got me. And in my head, I was like, right, like that's why I hate this shit. Like you really, like, we all end up in the same friggin' box, like what was the point? Like, you put so much literal faith into a person or a being or whatever to like take care of all of these situations for you. And like, I even hear my mom say occasionally, like, I'm just going to leave it in God's hands. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I guess like what you're saying is like this, whatever the situation is out of my control. But to think that you're putting it in the hands of someone else, it's like, okay, but then when they don't do the thing that you're asking them to do and you somehow still give them a free pass, it's like, what are we talking about? And then you look at that as a person who doesn't believe and you're like, surely you can see that this is not a helpful tool across the board. And but for some people it is, and it's not really our place to like impede on what makes people happy unless it is like, I think, especially harmful. Like, I think there are definitely some like fundamentalist portions of religion that are like especially scary, obviously. But yeah, it's hard to watch like your friends and your loved ones do all that stuff.
Also, one thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just gonna say one thing I wanted to add in relation to looking for a quote unquote like God fearing man and like how that could be not so great. I think about, and I've seen this a lot within Christianity, is as long as a guy like labels himself as that or like a Christian, a lot of other things seem to be overlooked. And then that causes problems down the line, like general like compatibility or if they're even genuinely like a good person, because I feel like some not so great people can gravitate towards religion because they can kind of, like I said earlier, get away with a lot and then ask for forgiveness after. But yeah, I think and then on top of that, a lot of times Christians get married very quickly because they don't believe in like sex outside of marriage and stuff like that. And so I've seen people get married to another person who says they're Christian and they think that's like a safe bet, I guess, when getting married, because like that's the number one thing they're looking for. And I think it causes people to ignore like a lot of other things in the relationship.
Right. It reminds me of something funny. It's like a meme. If you're into music, you know what reverb is, right? It's this reverberation of sound, makes it all pretty and fluffy. If you play something very crappily, but you still stick it with a reverb, it's just going to mask things and you're going to make it fluffy and all that. This kind of makes a human more appealing just because, I'm the man of God. Accept me as I am. I'm the best for you. And it really doesn't address anything important. And
Right.
That's a really funny way to put it. Like, yeah, I like that way to describe it. Like, it's just a whole bunch of reverb over a shitty sound.
Yeah. And one thing, when you guys were sharing your opinion right now, something came to my mind. So in the church, there's a lot of almost brainwashing going on and a lot of almost I can't find the word for that, but basically a lot of strong recommendations, like you have to go after people of your kind. Like, we are Catholics, you must marry a Catholic. We are Baptists, you have to marry a Baptist. Like the kind of colony mind high, right? Or high mind. And so they have the right to say what you should be doing. But me, I don't want to do the same thing, but at the same time, I want to sometimes, like, they're like, you can do better. Maybe don't do it. But yet it's such a delicate thing. It's like when to say it, when not to say it. On the other hand, people who tell you, like, literally, that's what you have to do. Otherwise, don't come back to this church, you know? And then on a more secular point of view, it's like we are trying to be so gentle. We sometimes don't want to push and this and that. But who will tell them? They're just going to do it anyways. They're just going to do it what the church tells them. So that thin line is just very hard to cross, just not being invasive. Because me personally, I'm trying to be a decent human being, not a piece of crap who tells you what to do, you know. And yet there's that urge to say something. And
you know what's been helpful for me in this is when, especially with like the political climate that we have going for us right now, it's been really, really easy to, at a minimum, demonstrate how Christianity is used as a tool to do some really awful, shitty things. And so, like, when things come up, I mean, like, we see this with the Republican Party every day now. When really terrible things are happening, I will send them along to, like, close family, like people who know that I'm not trying to, like, attack them. I'll send it to them and be like, look at this horrible thing that they're doing in the name of God. Isn't that weird? And hope that they're sort of putting it together to be like, this, all of this feels like a tool. Like, this feels like a tool for you to believe this one ideology so you're easier to control. And, like, that's kind of all it is. So I don't know, when you, I think sometimes a good way to do it is, like, when you see or hear things, to approach it with, like, curiosity with that person and be like, oh, wow, did you see this? That's so crazy. Instead of judgment. Curiosity instead of judgment, it leads to, like, better results for a lot of things like this.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar because I feel like sending them maybe, well, if they would read a book or, like, watch even like a debate or something, and, like, sending that to them and then asking them, like, what they think about it, I feel like is, like, a great way to go about it. Because I remember when I was Christian, a lot of the conversations I had with people who didn't believe weren't very productive, because it felt like it was coming from a place of judgment where they thought I was stupid for believing. And obviously that, like, made me not want to talk about it because I was embarrassed, or, like, felt like I couldn't actually say what I think. And I never really had anybody just, send me stuff to watch or read and then ask me what I genuinely think about it. And looking back, that definitely would have been the most effective method, because that's what got me there. But I ended up doing that on my own. Sometimes it also helps you, when you think you're thinking for yourself, which you are, but, like, when someone's not telling you what to believe, but instead you're consuming information and then deciding what you believe on your own, or, like, being convinced of something on your own, I think is a lot more helpful. So just, yeah, what Alyssa said, like, providing them with certain things and letting them form their own thoughts about it, because then they probably feel more secure about, changing their mind about something, if they do change their mind.
Some reverse psychology right there. Sneaky. No, but
Yeah,
thank you.
you're like
Thank you.
tricking them into critical thought a little bit, but it works. It helps.
No.
Well,
No.
Satan, we appreciate you calling, and yeah, let us know if you end up having any of those conversations, and give us a call. Let us know how it goes.
Yeah.
Sure thing. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. That was a very chill Satan.
Yeah, I loved it. It was great. He was very chill.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up? I'm glad you enjoyed that clip of people talking to each other. I'm Jimmy, and this is Eric. And well, we'd really love it if you would support us. Where can they support us, Eric? Where would they do that?
I don't know, Jimmy, because I don't have the notes on me right now.
This is
but
too
I think
long.
It's like
The outros
Patreon.
have to be short. Patreon.com/call the line.